Good evening. It's Liam here. Seven o'clock. 1900 hours. Central European time. Very good evening. 1800 hours Greenwich Mean Time. On Saturday, the 7th of November 2020, all the way from the little Baltic town of Eckernförde. 20,000 people live in my little village here on the Baltic Sea, close to Denmark. And it's Saturday night, and it's about reading some poetry. Before I dig into the poems, and will wait a moment or two, giving people the opportunity to log in. Good evening, Liam here. To my warmest greetings and welcomes to my friends, my family, and anybody that I haven't as yet known or met, wherever you might come from. I'm not sure if you should be able to make comments in the comment bar on this live presentation. So please feel free to just introduce yourself, maybe even mention where you're from. It's about live poetry. And these are poems which I have written in the course of the last 2 weeks. I have 7 new pieces of work that I'd like to present this evening. What I'd like to do, I'd like to read the poetry, I'd like to talk about the poetry. Good evening, Beatrice. Wonderful that you are there. I will be reading the poetry and I'll be talking a little bit about the poetry. But before I actually dig into the substance of this evening's reading, again, I would love to take the opportunity to very briefly present these 2 books. New Millennium Poetry Volume 1, New Millennium Poetry Volume 2. 2 books of poetry which have already been published. Now, I know everyone who will watch this video, who might have watched any of the other videos, you've all had poetry at school, right? We all have. And poetry as we know it, when we pick up a book, it's basically letters on a white page. But there's one exception to the rule. And this is an idea that I had a couple of years ago. Every single poem, as you can see, at the bottom of the poem, in the middle of the page, that is what you call a QR code. Now we see QR codes nowadays everywhere, and since the advent of COVID, very many, at the moment again we're in full lockdown, so even the restaurants are closed, but lots of restaurants have a QR code at the entrance of the door, which when you scan that QR code, it automatically will give the restaurant your information. Now the QR codes on all of the poems, on each and every single poem in these 2 books, has their own QR code. Now that links you to an audio presentation of myself reading that particular poem. And it's also underscored with either guitar music or piano music. And the result is truly fantastic. I don't want to put feathers in my own cap, but when I heard it for the first time, the result was amazing. It's, try it out. Try it out yourself. When you go to the website's dead easy to remember and dead easy to find. It's simply The Poet, www.thepoet.me. You go to thepoet.me and click on thepoet.me, and there you will find 5 poems with these QR recordings on them. You scan that QR code with the scanner on your smartphone, and there you have it. You have the book in your hand and you have your smartphone giving you a live recording of the poem. And it makes a huge difference. It's this connection between the ancient and the new, and it works. So it's a great idea. It's a great gift, and I'd love you to try it out and tell me what your own thoughts are. Greetings to Fiona. Wonderful. I'm thrilled that you're there. Great stuff. And Gildau as well. That the connection worked earlier. Fantastic. So, let's start the poetry reading. What I'd like to do, in a way, to introduce the topic of this evening's work, I'd like to refer to a conversation that I had this morning with my daughter Leonie. And she's in Berlin. She's doing her master's degree in art. And she was talking to me and telling me about a stream of art called conceptual art, which started in the late 50s. And by the time conceptual art had fully developed in the 80s, it was then completely absorbed into the mainstream of artistic representation. The fundamental idea resonated with what poetry is about, and that's why I'd like to mention it. With the idea of conceptual art, it was to move away from the object, the physical object of a piece of art, and to involve much more the subjective person who is looking at the object itself. So we move away from the object of art, and the experience of art moves into the subjective experience. What is this experience and where does it happen? And it happens through, of course, our senses of sight, of hearing, of taste, of smell. And of course, with poetry, we move more and more deeper into the human psyche, into the human mind, when we start to work with the ideas of metaphor and all of those grammatical tools that we implement when we write poetry. But fundamentally, it's a stepping back from the world of reality or the world of Newtonian physics. And what we do, we step into the invisible world of the soul. We step into the invisible world of our thoughts and our ideas and our feelings. And when we open that door, we step into a room which is as vast, if not vaster than the world of things that involves our everyday mind, from morning to night, day in and day out. For the world in which we live is a world where we are concerned and focused in producing money so that we can live in that world of things. But fundamentally and essentially, each and every one of us is, consciously or not, involved in the world of the invisible. We greet that world each and every night when we close our eyes and we go to sleep. And we leave that world in the morning when we open our eyes. And the life that we live is one which moves in the course of time from birth until again we step across that threshold into a world as yet unknown, but a world which fascinates us, each and every one of us, and it's a world to which we will return. Now, a lot of the poetry that I've written is about this invisible world. And as I'd mentioned, I'm reading poems or work that I have written in the space of the last 2 weeks since I gave my last poetry reading. And should we have enough time at the end of this reading, I would like to perhaps read another 1 or 2 poems from last week. The first poem I'd like to begin with this evening is called A Field of Flowers. Now, before I actually read a poem, I'd like to just remind everyone that a poetry reading is a little bit different from going to a musical presentation. There are no dancing girls ringing bells and beating drums. It's just the content. It's just the words and me reading these poems off. And for you to experience as much, to glean as much content and depth, I have mentioned before, you can create what I call divergent focus. And divergent focus is nothing other than basically in your comfortable space where you are at the moment, is to lean back, either to close your eyes and to let your focus sink into your own subconscious mind and let the content of the poems wash over you, into you, and through you. And as those images rise up from the depths of your own soul, observe that. Observe what happens within you. And look at those images and see how they resonate within your own being. Because it's in that resonance the richness lies. It's in that resonance. The gold of poetry is always to be found. And that's what we're going for. We're going for gold. So here we go. A Field of Flowers. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, a teacher, passed away last week. And it was with a certain sense of sadness that inspired these words. A Field of Flowers. All I own will be here when I am gone, out walking with the angels, here to be sung, to be spoken, to be called, out loud into the day. The ways of those who listen will awake within the how you hear. Yes, hear up deeply, wake up fully, for you too will walk these far-off places, far up from the fields of flowers in spring, when God has called, "Come and walk with these words. They were once flowers growing here, given to me to give to you." So God calls out, "Come and walk with these words. They were once flowers growing here, given to me to give to you." So the metaphor here is one where the words themselves were once in heaven, and through that deep inner listening, they incarnated and were planted in the minds of those listeners. And there, in that inner field of richness, the words of these poems again can be plucked. They can be given as a gift to you, to take with you on that journey. The second poem is a poem where the metaphor has to do with light and growth and rain and richness, and what it is when we combine the strength and the warmth with the moisture and the wet. And it's called growth. All day I've been showered in light, these golden beams of love flooding all. Everything we see, we do, we hear, totally saturated in this warm living rain. Let it invigorate new hope, new thoughts and inspiration. These tender seeds are my very growth, each letter an alphabet from heaven, bursting up and out across this page, a vitality we all comprehend, a reality we all need apprehend. So the idea is that when you open that door of love, and love is a metaphor not for a red throbbing Hollywood heart, but love as a metaphor for the very underlying energetic substance of the universe. And at its very highest form, it manifests in human love for one another and for that life that we have been given to share. So let the warmth of the living rain of light invigorate hope, thought, and inspiration, that these tender seeds, each a letter from heaven, each an inspiration from the invisibility of your own being, bursting up and out across the page of your own very life, a vitality which we all comprehend, a reality we need to apprehend, to keep it, to understand it, to live it, to see it, to hold it for a moment in the objectivity of your own thoughts and realize what it means. The next poem is called Strangely. And it's a very short poem. But the poem came about because I was intrigued by the fact that the idea of love, when we experience it in something that we see, in something that we hear, in something that we smell, in some way, one of our senses, one of the limited senses that we have, responds to something, even if it's a delicious meal, you smell something or a perfume. It's like, oh my God, this is something wonderful. That resonance, that sensual resonance is an experience. It's a momentary experience of a manifestation of love. Okay? So this is what inspired this little poem called Strangely. Isn't it strange how we are drawn discreetly to what or whom we love? The secret lies at the very center of my heart. This mystery becomes love in its doing, happiness in its transformation. For truth, for humility, we must pull this up out of our depths. Strangely, this is who we are, and this is how we become lovers. This is how we become lovers. So in that intrinsic experience of experiencing love, when you go down that path and you intensify it and you experience it consciously, lift it into your awareness each time it happens in your day, be it a meditation or be it a glass of water that you're drinking, be it the time that you're sharing with someone that you intensely and deeply love, be it a child, a friend, or a spouse. But make that moment conscious. Look at that process of love and realize that it's never to be taken for granted and is, in fact, something quite strange. This next poem is called Falling. And yes, you might have guessed correctly, it's a poem about love. Good evening, Joanne. Lovely. So nice you found time. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Lovely. Well done. And I'm just about to read a little poem called Falling. So, listen deeply, listen closely. Here we go. To fall in love with the love you've fallen in love with. This is not madness nor a soliloquy. It's me, the universe and God, in quiet conversation, each sharing the quintessential idea of now in a way which requires reflection, creativity, and selflessness. Let's do this in union, singing songs and spinning helplessly under the stars, each becoming the other as we recognize love in love with love. Yeah, it's a little poem that I really love. I really love. Just to remind everyone, a soliloquy is nothing other than a monologue or a conversation that you would have alone with yourself, yeah? So to fall in love with the love you have fallen in love with, it's not madness nor a soliloquy. It's me in quiet conversation with the universe and God, sharing the quintessential idea of now in a way which requires reflection, creativity, and selflessness. So let's do this in union, singing songs and spinning helplessly under the stars, each becoming the other, as we recognize love in love with love. So that's just this silly little play of connecting with the idea of love in a way which unifies and connects you deeply to the moment of now, when you are in unison with God and yourself, in love with the moment, spinning under the stars and laughing. The next poem I'm going to share with you is called Requirements, and it's not an easy poem. It's not an easy poem. It's I'm just going to read it off, and you just see where it takes you. Requirements. I am where I am, you there where you are too. Still, no need to fret or stare, because I do what I can do. Here now alone with what I have become. With you too, it's a complicated whole, no longer alone, which leaves us asking why, which weaves us closer to the whole, which temporarily fulfills the requirements of now. Meaning, you are who I've tried to become. But why? You are who I've tried to become. But why? So the requirements within this poem, the ideas within this poem, is the question, why try and mirror someone else? Mirror yourself. Be unique to yourself. And in that unique union of discovering who you truly are, there is no need to mirror anyone else other than discover who you truly are. And in that is a union between yourself and God and the cosmos. A moment of love. Gilda, it's the magic it's the magic of present moment awareness when everything else stands still. Exactly, the magic of meditation. That's where meditation takes us. And meditation has transformed completely my chaotic life. And that has developed over the course of the last 6-7 years. And I put all of my creative energy and focus nowadays down to the fact that meditating regularly has enriched who I am as a person in so many different ways. Creatively, happiness, joy, fulfillment, love, all of these qualities that we strive for are qualities which we discover within ourselves. And for myself, poetry has become a medium to transport some of these ideas, or to try and transport some of these ideas in my own particular way. And with that, I'd love to share this next little poem with you. It's called The Antenna. So you all know what an antenna is. And I found a wonderful image on the website when you look at this little poem called Antenna. I found a massive radio telescope focused out into the cosmos. So as you listen up to this poem, picture this enormous, great radio telescope reaching out into the universe. Okay, here we go. While out in the wilds of the world one day, I found God in what a man did say. What is that mystery crumpled in your hand? Help me, friend, to understand. The gaze was grace, so high I knew, till heaven's window through we flew into this place called life, a force of love to end my strife, folding out those creases deep, could stretch my heart across the cosmos and the sky, encompass all that's ever been, including all that is unseen. This organ given by life, so free, this antenna linked to the cosmic me, began to tune into this vibe, began to pulse, became alive, and with this too, I now could see that God as well resides in me. So, the cosmic antenna, picking up the vibe of the universe, and with that recognizing that God also resides in me and is not just out there in the universe, but is also here in who we are, in our simple and complex humanity. With that, everyone, I've come to the last poem, the last of 7 poems, the last of 7 pieces of work which were written in the course of the last 2 weeks. And this is a poem called Worthy, and I think it's a poem which resonates with so many of us. You know, we are in our minds, in our psyches, we are always a product of our own upbringing. And the product that we look at times with our own awakened awareness, we realize that there are shadows There are shadows in our own psyche. Shadows caused by objects which have been placed there early in childhood. And as these objects block the stream of light as it flows down into your own soul and into your heart, it creates shadows. And it's about these shadows that one can question one's own worth or worthiness. And it's about this that I've written this particular work, and it's called Worthy. So listen up, listen deep. You are worthy of love, was said 1,000 times. The question of my worth, the reason of my birth has passed, has even disturbingly resided in my mind. Those ragged, jagged thoughts, created, originated, equally resilient feelings of inadequacy, desperate in emotional destitution. Love lost me then. Or was it I who had lost myself, neglected to quietly initiate my worthiness? This was about being meritorious, deserving, and worthy of love. The paradigm changed through recognition. This me, this I, this biography is alone enough, sufficiently enough to be worthy, to be deserving, to be meritorious, to be loved. I myself love the world. You are worthy, said love. And so the poem, when you look at the way it's structured, it begins with the statement, you are worthy of love, was said. You are worthy of love, was said. Was said by whom? Could be your resonant question. And the last line of the poem, you are worthy, said love. So the resonance comes at the end of the poem after an indefinite, unspecified statement is made. It's answered by yourself. It's answered by your own inner recognition and your own inner voice, which whispers quietly in your ear, saying, yes, you are worthy. So the poem, it begins with the deep, fundamental question, you are worthy 1,000 times. The question of my worth, the reason of my birth has passed, even disturbingly resided in my mind. Ragged, jagged thoughts created, originated, equally resonant feelings of inadequacy, desperate and emotional destitution. So all of this, in a way, this is what I mentioned about the shadows. Shadows created by objects which had been placed there in the course of one's own childhood. They leave one with a question, am I worthy? Am I worthy? Am I enough? Am I enough? Love lost me then. Or was it I who had lost myself? Neglected to quietly initiate my worthiness. This was about being meritorious, deserving and worthy of love. The paradigm changed through recognition. This me, this I, this biography is enough, sufficiently enough to be worthy, to be deserving, to be meritorious, to be loved. I myself love the world. So in that moment of recognizing that you are enough, fully enough, in every single facet and molecule of who you are as a human being, you are enough to be deserving, to be meritorious, to be loved. In that moment, you recognize that you also are a being which loves the world in which you are, in all its aspects, in all its diversity, in all its craziness, and in all its levels and all its lines. You are worthy, said love. And so that little poem comes to an end. Well, those are the last 7 poems from the last week, and it's almost time to say goodbye, but I would love to share one more poem as yet unpublished, and all these poems, these unpublished poetry, are actually now going into the 3rd volume. Here we have volume 1, volume 2. It will be a magnus opus, as they say in Latin. It will be a triumvirate of 3 big works of poetry. And all of this work, there is enough work at the moment present to fill the 3rd volume. And that's what I'm working on at the moment. Well, I've just started working on it. And these poems will be part of that 3rd book. The last poem, we'll see. I don't know if you still have another moment or two to listen, if you still have the strength to keep your divergent focus focused. This poem is called Emergent Me. I read it last week, and it's a wonderful poem. And it's about exactly that. It's about the emergence of your own true nature within the context of the life that you live. Yeah? It's in a way this coming out of your own deep inner cupboard and the recognition that, wow, this is the true me, yeah? And so the poem is called Emergent Me. When I hear my heart beating, strange, wonderful and new, it's you know, who's new to me, whose music plucks the strings strung tight across my life, lines which connect the invisible, threads, a web of connected ideas, weaving the mysterious meaning, hard programmed into elliptical patterns I've always wanted. I've always tried to see a blueprint of who I could, of who I would be with you, who catalyzed me emergent from the fabric of upbringing to the liberated mind of conscious, aware truth, awake to the now, aware of the how, wanting only the really truest you to hold me in warm hands and smile. A blueprint of who I could, of who I would be with you, who catalyzed me emergent from the fabric of upbringing to the liberated mind, awake to the now, aware of the how, wanting only the really truest you to hold me in warm hands and smile. So that you is the awareness of your emergent me. That's you emerging into the me of self-aware, objective amazement. Wow, this is who I really am. This is who I've woken up to recognize as my true essential self. Perfect in every way. Rich, loving, and true. It's 7:45. One more, a last one, and then I'm off to have my dinner. So, I'm reading this poem. It's called Naked, and because it describes exactly that moment. It describes exactly this moment of standing naked in front of yourself with the full realization of what has just happened. Naked. As I've stumbled forward into today, clothed in the rags, tags, and ripped pieces of the past, it's these sad torments, my well-known companions of sorrow, I'll slough off. I'll now undress. I'll now strip away. Stand naked with thee before my soul. Arms outstretched and cry, free, I am free. My body beautiful is a gift from God through birth. My soul chose this place, magnificent to live. My spirit embraces these three. In this communion recognize how much joy life has in fact given us to see. Through that pain, I've now learned to laugh, to be me. Yeah. Powerful. Those are powerful words. Those are powerful moments of self-recognition. To strip away that which has weighed you down, for it has no more significance other than the memory that it was. But the emergent you is one which exists and lives and emerges in the moment of now. And with that, namaste, God bless. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and read more poetry. It's good for you. Yeah, lots of love from Liam in Eckernförde. Everybody, good night. Bye for now.